welcome to the Indigenous Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm Cecilia Pacheco, well, Cecilia Vicentino, I guess. And today I have with me Rita, Veleta, and Shani, Harvie from the New Mexico Economic Development Department, JEDI Department. So Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Department, aka JEDI. So we're going to be talking about what they're doing. They've been really great partners to us in the Tribal Entrepreneurship Enhancement Program. So we just wanted to have them on here to talk more about what they're doing on the state level and some of the collaborations and resources and everything that they've been up to. So if you guys want to introduce yourselves, and then we can get into the questions. Go.
Sure. So I'm Shani Harvie. I've been with the department for going on 5 years now. And I helped launch the JEDI program, which is now the JEDI Office, in April of 2021. A long time coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my name is Rita, Veleta, and I work alongside Shani in the JEDI Office. It's been 1.5 years, going on 2 years, and it's been really amazing getting to do this work. It's a little different in state government than in other spaces, but
Yeah.
it's been amazing.
It's necessary in state government, though. So, okay, JEDI, Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Department or Office. What do you guys do? Like, how did it start? Why did you think that it was necessary to create a project like this?
Yeah. So I think the idea kind of came, and this was in the middle of the pandemic, and kind of right before the murder of George Floyd. And I noticed that in the work our department was doing, there was a lot of focus on big business, big companies, and their growth and their expansion, which is great, right? We need that for the growth of our state. But there wasn't a lot of focus on the small businesses and our businesses from our Black and Brown communities and our underestimated communities didn't have that same kind of direct connection into the department. And I saw a need for, one, that relationship to grow, but also working in the department, I knew there were so many resources available to small businesses that there was just almost a lack of information happening.
Yeah, lack of awareness.
Lack of accessibility. And I started doing a presentation that was a kind of for business owners of color, really looking at alternative lending options because folks didn't really have a lot of familiarity with like CDFIs and credit unions. And then same piece when it came to business resources. I was like thinking in my head, well, there's all these offices, there's West, there's SBDC, there's what UNM Rainforest is doing, and there's so much more there. And folks just don't know how to tap into that.
Yeah.
So what can I do? And then I kind of came across the term of folks calling themselves JEDI practitioners, and that they were incorporating
cool.
justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion into what they were doing. And I was like, that would be the coolest title ever. And I pitched it to the cabinet secretary at the time, and it grew into this coordinator position really around connecting minority and underserved businesses with resources and kind of growing awareness and accessibility. So it started from a webinar.
That's
and then
awesome.
I thought it would
I
be
think
cool.
I attended one of those webinars, like one of your very first ones.
Cool.
You had like sticky notes on the screen and stuff that we were filling out. Yeah, I think I was on that.
Miro boards and lots of GIFs because I didn't want to make boring presentations. And it's grown. Yeah.
It really has. Yeah.
Anything you want? Yeah.
I don't think so. When I heard of this opportunity through a common friend and colleague in this space that Shani also knows, and when she told me about the opportunity, I thought it was great because I was already doing some economic development work with small businesses, working in consulting and training at the time. But I have also considered myself like an activist for a long time throughout my years, even in high school and university. And so this is kind of like the intersection of the work that I do. I've always been an advocate for the community that I'm a part of, which is the Hispanic and Latino community, as well as the other communities that I've seen are typically left out of so many programs. And not all of the time it's not purposely, but because our communities just, there's a lot of mistrust, especially in state government, because of many things historically that our communities have had to endure. And so I was like, this is great. Like I can do both of the things that I love to do and that I'm really passionate about. And so that's when I came in, and it's been a journey of me and Shani really trying to figure out what the needs in the community are, and going into community to hear them out and make sure that we know what their needs are, rather than, of course our experiences are valid and we are part of these communities, the Black community, the Hispanic community, but we don't know the perspective and the needs of like the Indigenous community, the Asian community. And so we've been working, like I said, to go into communities, as well as building these relationships like we have with you all here at the TEEP program, and also with a couple of other community organizations that are already working with these communities that we really want to make impact on. So that's how we realized that was the way into making this work what it is today.
Yeah, you guys really serve as a bridge between like the entrepreneurs, the business community, and then like government, which I think is really important, because a lot of times policies are made by people who maybe have never started a business, so they don't really know what the needs are or what those barriers are. So it's awesome that you guys are able to provide that. Can you walk me through just a little bit of what you guys do? Because I know you do a lot, but so one of them is assessing the needs. Like, what else are you guys up to?
Yeah. You want me to?
Yeah, do you talk about technical assistance and help?
Yeah, it's grown into a lot. I think there was meeting with community to understand those needs, recognizing that we won't always know. So being able to hold that space to listen and understand what the concerns are. And it's funny because I'll tell folks, like, if you have a problem with what's going on in New Mexico state government, like, come talk to us, because we're kind of like the inside team where we have this opportunity, because we know how the internal side of the state is working, that we can try to either kind of help you navigate that process and also just make that process more transparent so folks know when budgets are being heard, how programming works, how we look at contracting. And usually I'll go through like a bunch of different things, but I think helping people navigate how to work with state government, having like an ally that you can approach to be able to get work done, because most of the time, no one wants to walk into a bank you've never been in. You don't want to go to a meeting with the county or the state if you've not met these folks. And then as an entrepreneur, you're in a space where you're putting a lot of vulnerability and your creativity and your passion forward. And then to not have that received well, or for it to be brushed off, is not how people want to sit in that experience. So if we can do things that can address that, that's kind of where some of the other initiatives we've been working on have kind of come from.
Truly, I think one of the like discussions, and it was a moment that me and Shani were in the car driving. I think we were driving back from Hobbs. It was like our second or third community visit that we did after I started, and we were just talking about the needs of entrepreneurs and the needs that we had been hearing with the meetings that we had been having in that area. And we were like, what programs can we refer them to, right? We were showing up representing Economic Development Department, the JEDI Office, and then when it came to, what does Economic Development Department have to offer for these small businesses? And there are a lot of programs that help really big companies, that attract companies, that they help them grow, expand, and retain them as well. But there isn't very much for those entrepreneurs that are either trying to start a business, or they have been in business for a year and they're trying to have access to capital, as Shani mentioned. And so that is where our idea came from. Like, we need to give businesses access to the resources at the beginning so that they can grow into a space where they can then start accessing our bigger programs, like our job training incentive programs or our other programming they're really amazing programs. They're just not tailored to smaller businesses that are more mom and pop. And even though we do have our Main Street program, which they do amazing work as well, they're we were trying to find a connection between how do we get them from being in Main Street or being this smaller business to grow into the point where they can access bigger incentives.
To that next level.
Yeah.
That's actually been one of the needs or like desires that our liaisons have encountered, is that need to scale or just learn how to scale. But I just wanted to mention, like, our partnership, I think, was just such a perfect fit because with the NMT program, we're doing the same type of discovery, just focused in on like tribes. So it's been really awesome to be able to connect the liaisons to you guys so that they can kind of report their own experiences, but then also the experiences of other people that they're interviewing to you. That way that you guys can help inform other departments or like policy, because to make it easier to navigate. So that's just been awesome. It's been a perfect fit for a partnership because it's just really nice to know that if an entrepreneur comes to us with like, well, I've been having trouble with this and I tried to apply for this, but like for whatever reason I wasn't qualified or able to, we can like tell you guys. That way you're informed, and then you can see how maybe you can create other programming or tweak the current programming to, yeah, it's so awesome. I think it's really cool, and our program's still new and your program's still new, so I think there's just more opportunity to grow and continue to work together.
Yeah. And I think that's what's been really cool and exciting about like the contracts for technical assistance and financial literacy and like the contract that we have with you all to do that, because as two people trying to run an office that represents like 2 million New Mexicans across the state.
Yeah.
It's like a lot to think that we can go out and lead training, but having partnerships when you have a whole team and you have people who know what those needs are, and that we can then incentivize making that possible, as opposed to us trying to recreate the wheel or go out and do it ourselves. We can find the communities, organizations, and individuals that have like a heart and a passion for helping the community, for helping entrepreneurs reach that next step. And then we let them as the expert go out and continue to do that training.
Yeah.
And then we can continue to survey those needs and then understand how the environment is changing as it's moving forward. So it's been really exciting to have an actual budget so that we can like support those programs and watch them grow. And we've kind of been, this is like a small like pilot version of what we've been trying to do with the bigger state small business credit initiative, which is the SSBCI program through Treasury. So now we have an RFP going out, a request for proposals, where we're looking for more technical service providers and entrepreneurial support organizations, people, individuals that can help provide like legal, accounting, and financial services. So it's just been like, it's been a process, it's been a journey, but we've kind of figured out that building community, building partnership, and collaborating in that way and connecting the ecosystem further is how we can make a bigger difference, rather than trying to go out and like save the world ourselves. It's like, what do we all have in common, and what can we
the right people to work with. One thing I want to say that's just really awesome about you two and how you go about the work that you're doing is like you actually show up to these events that are like way out in Taos or like Santa Clara, and I think that makes a huge impact and difference. Like when you guys showed up to Taos Hive, Reza was like, what? We have someone from like the NMEDD here, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because that's not common. And so it's just and it's important though. And that's why I think with our program too, the fact that our liaisons are in the communities and we're trying to go out to the communities versus just tell them, come to Albuquerque, come to Santa Fe. It creates a different dynamic that's a lot more welcoming and productive and builds that trust that's necessary.
Yeah, and if you're in the spaces that they already feel comfortable in working with organizations and people they already are familiar with, and they see that you're going out of your way maybe, or just taking the initiative to be there in their community, I think that builds more trust than asking them like, hey, we opened up this space, like you said, in Albuquerque or in Santa Fe for you to come down or up. It's not possible for everyone, and so I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, definitely. So you guys have a new initiative that you just kind of sent out an email regarding that I'm really excited about. So I'm wondering if you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, this is the two biggest projects I think that we're working on right now is the SSBCI that Shani was talking about, and this ecosystem mapping, which we have, like we said before, we know that the resources are out there for small businesses. We know the providers across the state, not all of them, but we know a lot of them. And so we're like, where do we find, if we're trying to find a business resource to help me write a business plan, or if I'm trying to find a resource that can help me understand bookkeeping or accounting or whatever the topic may be, how do I look for that resource? Do I just Google them and then hope that somebody in New Mexico pops up? Which a lot, we also realize that a lot of like small businesses, maybe like even CPAs, don't have that online presence. So even if you do Google that, they won't come up. And so that's something that Shani had actually started, and then we looked for or we were searching for a contractor that could help us do the work, because we had the idea but we didn't know how we would do the research, how we would build a platform, how we would do any of that. It's a really big monster.
I can't imagine. Many people have tried, but I think it's perfect that you guys are the ones doing it because you're the whole state of New Mexico.
Yeah, and that's been what we've been trying to do, is not only make it something that's economic development or JEDI office, but we want to make sure that the entire business resource community across the state is included, making sure that their listings on our ecosystem map or our resource directory is exactly what they want it to be, that we do have the right contact information. We are also going to be we still haven't launched it to the full public just yet, because we are perfecting that back end of making sure that all the listings are available. But it will be a really helpful tool for business owners to get connected with all of those resources that are not only in their area, but maybe across the state, but that they can meet with over Zoom or over a call. And so it's kind of connecting the entire state in a platform, and we're hoping to make it really accessible. We want to make sure that it can be translated into other languages, so we do have like a translation function on there. And so we're just learning. It's a big thing that we're doing, but I think it's been really anticipated by a lot of the community in the state. So we're excited.
It's a huge need, and I know other organizations have created their own, but I haven't seen something that's like the whole state, like the whole picture. It's usually tailored to like one specific population or like need
or the industry.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think just having it again with the state of New Mexico makes it just more all-inclusive, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it makes it so we have to take like everything and everyone, every industry, every organization into account, right? Like it's not only focused on science tech, it's not only focused on food and agriculture, and we get to bring everyone together to say we know you have resources. Can you put them in this general, in like this one door? People can walk through any door, but this also creates a door where they can find those other, like I think New Mexico Startup Factory has a similar tool. We've taken all of that information as well, so people can still find that avenue if that's what's fitting for them, if they're focused on complete startup. And it's taken kind of like the argumentative piece out of like who's being represented and what's going on, because we're coming from that state level, so we can't have a bias towards an industry or a community, or the resource. So if it's a business resource, right, and it's a business service, it's included in what we're doing, and we try to focus it more on, well, it's not focused totally on free resources, right, because sometimes you have to pay the experts when you get to that level. But when you're starting out, so there's just like all these different levels. And I think something that I'm excited about, which is silly, it's like a map feature. So you have the map of New Mexico, and the way that our EDD, Economic Development Department, breaks out our regions is we have like 6 different regions, and we have regional reps in those areas you can connect. We took that same map to do the resource map, and I was like, can you make it clickable so you can like click a region and pull up the stuff in that region?
Because that's what I've been wanting. Like that, I was just telling you, I've been trying to make a graphic or something for the tribal entrepreneurship program. So it's like I can just send that info to you guys, and then we can just refer people to that map, because I think a map is important because it shows people what's local to them.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it'll still pull the statewide stuff, and there's going to be some really great features in it, and it'll kind of be something that regardless of whether or not we're in these positions, like that tool will live on. It'll be able to be updated, because that's the hardest part, is that the second you type it out, it's out of date. But I think we've planned it out like 5 to 10 years, so I think we'll be good. It's exciting.
So one thing that you were mentioning about the tool that I thought was also really cool is that you said people will be able to embed it on their websites.
Yeah. So with the contractor that we're working with, Economic Impact Catalyst, or EIC, they've made it so that that map and that tool, any organization that's interested will be able to embed it on their own website. So if there's a specific community of interest or a specific region or a specific area of support that they would want to focus on, okay, I'm going to take a random example, like some of the councils of governments, right? There's a ton of different COGs across the state. So if they wanted to pull resources that were just like councils of governments and chambers, we have a section that separates that out. So when they embed it on their website, it can pull up those listings automatically and already have like a search feature built in. So if it's indigenous resources, right, and you want to embed it on the TEEP program page, it can already be sorted in that embed to pull those resources first. And then they can sort and do whatever else they want. If they want to tag a different community of interest, they'll be able to pull that out. But the contractor has been a lifesaver in that part. So it can become an open door on many different platforms. And there's also going to be some cool other features built into it.
Yeah, the first phase is really just trying to get as many listings on there as we can.
Which it's over 500, right?
Yeah, I think we have over 500 right now. But later, I think like phase 2, maybe within half a year or a year, we plan on giving access to the resources to actually have logins to go in and edit their own listings. That way they can keep them up to date and do that on their part, because we want them to also know that there is some ownership that they can take in this project, that, like Shani said, even if they're not there, or we're not there, that this can continue to grow and be the resource that we hope is going to be here for a long time.
Yeah, like it really is an ecosystem map, like, and it can evolve and be edited and all of that. That's so cool. Definitely a huge need. Like, I'm really excited.
It's been a long time coming, because we also had an outdated directory on our website that would pop things up, but it was like over 500 things. You couldn't organize it, and then because of the outdated piece, right, you have to like wait for someone to check that email, wait for them to get into the system and update it. So the overhaul of doing just a brand new resource map was really great. What about the grants and the calendar?
Oh yeah, we are also going to have a couple of buttons on there that are going to be tailored to anyone who goes in there looking for a grant. We're going to have a grants button where we will be listing any type of timely grants that are available at the time that are relevant to business owners.
Yeah.
Because we know that it's really hard to find those opportunities, and it's just something that like maybe someone in the department knows about it and they send it over to we have Channing works with us. He is in charge of sending out the resource wrap up. I don't know if you're on that email list.
I am. That's very useful.
Yeah,
it is.
And so that's kind of a team effort that if somebody in the department finds out about a grant or a resource, they send it over to him and he puts it all together and it does great of every other week sending all of that out. And so we want to incorporate that into the resource map and have those listings in there so that whoever accesses the resource directory can also have access to what grants are available. And then the other function that's going to be on there is going to be an events calendar. So if there are any type of like trainings, workshops, entrepreneurship events, expos, whatever it may be, they're going to be able to be listed on that calendar, and it's actually going to look like a calendar, like January, February, March. Or you can also see it as a list and see what's happening in your area or online as well.
That's awesome. That's so cool. I'm really excited.
It's been a fun one.
Especially because the contractor that we're working with is doing all of the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine myself trying to stay up to date on what's happening, and that's their expertise. That's what they do. Anything that we have, we forward to them, or whoever is interested in having the listing on the page. There's a button that they just click. It asks them a few questions about the event or about the new resource that they want to list, and the team takes care of putting it into the page, into the platform, and so it's there, and we don't have to really do much more than approve it to make sure that it is a resource that is that we can work with or that we can list on there without having any type of like issues.
I think it's this really incredible opportunity for everyone across like the entrepreneurial support ecosystem, even though it's like terminology that business owners themselves might not be using. We can take all that information out of our heads and put it somewhere where it can like live, because we can't talk to everybody.
Yeah, it's so hard. Like everyone that you meet with, it's hard to like, if you come across a resource, to remember that it might be something that they could use. And I know for our liaisons, it'll be really nice for them to have like a link or a page that they can just refer people to. And I also like that it can pull like the indigenous resources, or even based on maybe like topic of need, because I know from an entrepreneur and small business owner perspective, they get really overwhelmed when someone sends them an email with like a whole list. And it's just like, okay, what do I do with this? Like,
I don't have time to go through all this.
So the fact that the tool will already kind of be able to sort through that stuff for them and get them what they really need and are looking for is really, it's going to be really useful too. So I'm very excited. We will definitely embed that on our website for sure.
Yes, cool. That's exciting.
So what are some like other goals you have for JEDI? And I guess kind of like maybe where do you see the office growing in 5 years? Like, what's your hope?
Solve all the world's problems.
Fix everything. I think the goal is to continue to kind of build awareness around meeting our small businesses where they're at and providing that resource, and really trying to probably spread. So we do like department-wide training on JEDI topics, because DEI can't really sit in a silo. And I know, so anyway, hot button topic.
Yeah.
I think there's a misunderstanding when it comes to DEI that it's about like taking things away from people or, you know, cutting people out who have a qualifying chance. And I think that there's just a huge misunderstanding where it's really about doing what you can to get everybody at the table and make space to hear everyone's voice so that you can make the most informed decision or try to build consensus before you move forward. And I, you know, not going into anything else, I think that that's often misconstrued in the work that we're doing. And I think that that understanding of where we're coming from is we want all New Mexicans to have an opportunity to build a business and access resources if that's their desire.
Yes.
That shouldn't be blocked from anyone.
Yeah.
And I think we always want to remind folks, like in our own office, because if you've been working in an industry for 20 years, it's hard to remember what it was like your first year when you didn't know anything. And to have to like shift the way that you're talking to someone about the resources or not move as fast. And JEDI work is really about like meeting an individual where they're at and taking that into consideration, whether that's based on their background or language access or ability status, like all of that. And not just like, you know, it's like being a decent human being. It's like listening to people and recognizing where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And then instead of just going into the motion of like, oh, this is the pitch that I'll do because this is the pitch I always do when it's like a startup and I'll just give them like this list and we'll start this way. It's recognizing that people are in a different space.
What are their needs? What do I need to, like, what can I help them with?
Right.
Like, what do they need? I think you hit it on the nail. Like, what is the thing you hit the nail on the head with the listening aspect? It's so important. And then also getting all the voices on the table because like historically that hasn't always happened, and that's why we have like certain policies or like programs that do not serve everyone or that aren't accessible to everyone or just so I think it's really important the work you guys are doing.
And I think like long term, like 5 years, it's more about how can we get people to embody that perspective moving forward.
Yeah.
And then how do we continue to create programming and put dollars?
My allergies are
Fine.
It's like where and how can we make that impact? And then how can we get other people together to maybe look at a situation differently so that new solutions might come up and things like that.
Yeah. Like I lost my train of thought. Yeah, just getting the voices to the table, I think is really important.
Yeah. And I think in terms of state government, like, so we do the work in economic development, which means we get to focus on business and entrepreneurship. When you start looking at other state agencies and what they're focused on, that's going to look completely different. And DEI looks completely different based on the problem that you're trying to solve.
Yeah.
So I think that just like the ideology and intention, and this is where I'll I'll bring in the Star Wars piece, is like, I'm so sorry, I can't help it. You're like trying to bring balance, right? Because for so long, we've had an institution or a structure making decisions for an entire group of people, for an entire planet, population, country, local government, whatever it might be, with forgetting where those people are sitting in that space and not being able to do that. So like you said, if we're a bridge to be able to like bring those needs forward, that's what we can do. And I think it will always look different and it has to be tailored to the situation. And I think like keeping an open mind to that is what's important.
Well, I think New Mexico really can be the leader in this space because we are a very unique state and we do have our issues, but I think we as a whole can be and have been a little more inclusive than other states. So the fact that we're already starting this initiative to try to make sure that we're even more inclusive and even more voices are at the table, I think we're set up to really be a leader in this area. So I really appreciate the work that you guys are doing, and it's very similar to what we're doing with the NMT program. It's just we're focused only on Indigenous businesses, and then you guys get to use the work that we're doing to incorporate what you guys are doing for the whole state and for like multiple populations. Well, any last comments or thoughts that you'd like to share while we're here?
I don't think so. Now that you were just talking about JEDI and how you thought it was so cool, it's really awesome when we meet somebody new and tell them our title. They're like, "You have the greatest title or the funnest title."
That's what I think Zachariah Ben. He's like, that's a cool title.
And we actually have, I've seen groups that are now doing this type of work, and they are adopting the name as well to use it as like our JEDI working group, or I was in we're part of a government, what is it there? Government Alliance on Racial Equity. And so when they heard the title, they were talking about trying to incorporate it into the work that they're doing in other spaces. And so it's really cool to see that even just that is like an influence once they hear what JEDI does, what it can do for them, adopting it to what they do. So that's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I could talk about this all day. So
you can if you want to.
I mean, I feel like we didn't even really hit on Indigenous entrepreneurial needs because, and I can't. This is only because of speaking with you and Zachariah and meeting with your tribal liaisons to understand, and my Tika, because the challenges are so different. But if there's not a space in government where we can look at that directly and say, how do we, so like, if you really wanted to talk 5-10 years out, I'm more curious about like, how do we get tribes and communities interested in being able to do economic development work or having a job creation office or a startup office or a business incubator.
That's our goal.
And how do you do that on tribal land? How do you do that in the community? How do you, and then address those issues around utility access and broadband connectivity? How do you address those issues so that tribal communities can like build from there? Not, you have to leave.
Exactly.
Like, because that's, once we can get past like, you got to leave to do it, that's when you'll have made real impact. And like, if we can figure out how to get the right people in the room to move things like that, like,
I agree. And that's actually a big goal of our program, is to start having those conversations with tribes and community members about like having their own tribal liaison program or their own office of entrepreneurship or economic development, so that they can do that on tribal land and they don't feel like they have to leave. So we're barely starting to have those conversations through our program. But I will say, like, our partnership with you guys it's been essential and like very critical to that work, because we have a point person who we can say, well, okay, you're facing a barrier that involves like the New Mexico state government. Well, here's people you can talk to about it and just share your experience with, and they can help inform other people about what it's like, trying to run a business on tribal land, what those barriers of access to capital are. And then the more like people that we're able to talk to and then you're able to talk to, the more informed people are, and then the more informed decisions are made. So I think, our partnership with you guys is critical, and it's been very good. And I love that our liaisons are connected to you guys on an individual basis, because then they feel like, I can just go talk to Shani or Rita and let them know this is what's going on.
Yeah. And that makes me think of there's a small business regulatory advisory commission or council through EDD, and they're going to start meeting more frequently this year. I think the group's been inactive for a long time, but that's another way where even so, like, bring us the concern, and then if it's like a regulatory thing that's happening or stopping, or a rule that's trying to be promulgated, which I don't even know the definition of what that word means, we're able to take that feedback and then present it to that group. And then we can also take the feedback from, like, because those are community members, small business folks that sit on that group. We can then take those concerns and then take them back to agencies so that they have to take that that feedback into consideration when they continue building what they're doing. And there's also a body that works like that on the federal level. People just have to know what it is and who to call. But that's like, it's the same concept, you know. And, it's just, if we can get different people in the room to talk about it, then solutions that would have never come out of that room will start to rise. Because if you have people that are all in the same industry and they all think the same about stuff, they're all going to come up with the same solutions. And we need new solutions. Like, we don't have time to be trying to do what worked 20 years ago. We're here now.
I agree. Well, if the people listening want to connect with you guys, I really encourage any entrepreneurs who are listening to connect with Shani and Rita. They're very approachable. They will listen to your story, to your concerns, any needs and barriers that you're facing. So please reach out to them. I don't know if I can just have them reach out to me and connect them to you, or if you want me to link your emails or the website or
we're listed on the website, on our JEDI page. So then I would say, if you want to get connected with us, the best thing you can do is go to edd.newmexico.gov/JEDI.
Okay, and I'll link that on like the description and everything too.
And if they want to stay up to date with anything that we're involved with, like any of our partnerships, any of the events that happen, we are now keeping up with our social media, actually. So we're posting a lot more on both in Instagram. It's New Mexico Econ Dev, or NMEDD Dev. Yeah, and then on Facebook, we also have New Mexico Economic Development Department, on LinkedIn, and we're now pretty active with sharing what we're working on at the moment. So that's where they can find a lot of what we're doing.
Awesome. And any other organizations who are doing the same type of work that we're doing, please feel free to reach out to them as well. But thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I think you guys are doing like really critical work for New Mexico. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the invite.